Dive in the deep end, it's time to defend your movie.
Hello, friends, and welcome to this week's episode of Defending Your Movie. I am your host, Jeremy Meyer. This was one that when I started the podcast, I absolutely knew I'd be covering. It is the answer to the question, what is your favorite comedy of all time? This is the only movie that comes to my mind, and of course, it's the movie based on the board game Clue, which also happens to be my favorite board game, but that actually happened after I discovered the movie. Clue is a fantastic film, came out, when did it come out? I should have looked this up before I recorded, but I never really knew what exactly, 1985, so predates my birth by 3 years, but is one of the best ensemble casts of all time. To me, it has always been my favorite Tim Curry movie, which Tim Curry is always amazing and everything. But I mean, you got Tim Curry and Madeline Kahn, Christopher Lloyd, Michael McKean, Colleen Camp. Like the cast is huge even for its time. It's such a fun movie. It's incredibly quotable. And me and my guest today, Allen Kesinger, a friend of mine who we both used to write for the same video game website, darkstation.com. Go check those guys out. Still doing great work over there. He's the only person I know that is like as big a fan of this movie as I am. Because like whenever I bring it up with other people I know, my coworkers and stuff, like some people have never even seen it. Some people just don't care about it. But they're all wrong. Clue is a fucking fantastic, man. I have sworn in 2 intros in a row. I need to stop doing that. Clue is a fantastic film. Could not recommend it enough. I will throw this movie on and just kind of watch it whenever I have the time. I think if you look at my Letterboxd, which you can follow me on Letterboxd, I think I've logged this movie like 6 times, and that's really only since I've been using Letterboxd, which is like the last few years. So I've seen this movie countless times in my youth, but it is one of my favorite movies, easily my favorite comedy, and just such a fun film. And I hope more people check it out because of the show if you haven't already seen it. But before we get into the conversation, let's get the stuff out of the way. Social media. If you want to follow us, you can follow me over at Defending Movie on Twitter and Instagram. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/defending movie. I need to get this down because 2 of the websites are different. Our merch store, belowthecollar.com/defending your movie. We got some great t-shirts up there, some movie parody style shirts. So go check those out. I'm going to be getting more stuff up there soon. So get the stuff that is currently there, and then there will be some new stuff for you. But without further ado, let's talk about this fantastic, wonderful film, Clue. Is there an argument that this is the best comedy ever made?
Well, first of all, I have to take a little bit of umbrage that we're talking about this for a podcast that's called Defending Your Movie, because this movie does not need to be defended. But no, I mean, it's weird to me that the Metascore for this film is a 39 when I can't think of an ensemble comedy this good that's not It's a Mad, 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 Mad World.
Yeah, I will say the Rotten Tomatoes does have it at 65%, so a little higher there, but still way too low. IMDb's at 7.3.
Yeah. That does not make any sense to me whatsoever.
No, I mean, the movie was made for 15 million and only made 14.6. And I was like kind of flipping through some of the reviews on like just the critical response on the Wikipedia page. And a lot of the complaints seem to be about the middle of the movie where they're all searching the house. And like, I guess I get it. Although I think that stuff is still pretty funny.
Oh yeah, there's some fantastic bits in it.
Yeah, which so I'm not like a big physical comedy guy, but this movie has a lot of really good physical comedy.
Yes.
And I noticed it more on this, I mean, this is probably like the 100th time I've seen this movie, and I agree with you. This
Mhm.
movie does not need defending, but this was one that I chose, and I specifically reached out to you because you're
Mhm.
one of the only other people in my life that I know that loves this movie maybe as much as I do. Um, and yeah, like, we're kind of just going off, the box office and the response. It technically doesn't need defending, but it's like, man, how did this movie fail?
Right. And there is a, I've make it a point to watch this movie pretty much any chance I get.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, and for the longest time, um, I thought I was one of maybe 5 people who had seen this movie. And I literally stumbled onto this. I remember um this was had to have been sometime after it came out in theaters because it was on TV, and
Hmm.
I caught it in the middle, and I'm watching this kind of play out, and I'm like, these characters are like, oh hey, this is Professor Green, and this is Colonel Mustard. And I'm like, is this Clue? Did they make a movie of Clue?
That's a fascinating way to discover this movie.
Yeah, and so I told my parents to take me to the video store so we could check this out, and this, like, it, as far as film goes, it changed my life. And a few years ago, again, because for the longest time I thought I was only one of 5 people who've seen this movie, but a couple of years ago on BuzzFeed, there was a fantastic article called "The Crazy Story of How Clue Went from Forgotten Flop to Cult Triumph." And it is an oral history of this movie from practically everybody.
Really?
Um, and it kind of exposed that this movie has since gotten the Rocky Horror treatment. There are midnight screenings where
Oh
people will
man.
go. I mean, before COVID, of course,
Yeah.
there are midnight screenings where people will go dressed in character, and they will get up and say and it's like a big party. And I'm like, how the hell did I not know about this?
For real, I want to go to one. I'm not
Yeah,
usually one to do stuff like that, but for
yeah,
this movie, I would be there in a heartbeat. Like, this more than any other movie in my life is maybe my most quoted movie
yeah.
because
Oh, how
literally
can it not
almost
be?
every line is quotable.
Like, if I had, like, the phrase, whenever, like, it's knee jerk when somebody says, to make a long story short, I will always say too late.
Yeah.
It is like
Um,
ingrained in my vernacular.
mine is always the flames on the side of my
Yes.
face, which I was reading was an ad lib by Madeline Kahn.
Yeah, it was.
And is definitely the most Madeline Kahn moment in the
Yes,
movie because she is
yes.
like kind of toned down. She's not like as big as she
Hmm.
normally is in some movies, but that one moment she gets to show it
Hmm.
and it's amazing. But yeah, like, it's such a perfect script in my opinion. Like,
Yeah.
from beginning to end, and like, I do love the first like 20-30 minutes and stuff, and then the last like 20 minutes where they're running around the house, but
Hmm.
just the way everybody kind of gets introduced and you're learning about these characters and kind of picking up on some of their traits as you go in, like, everybody has a great role and is incredibly funny in the movie.
Everybody gets to do something. And, like, first of all, I mean, as far as ensemble casts go, like, this movie, like, hits the jackpot. I mean, you've got
Yeah.
Madeline Kahn, Michael McKean, Leslie Ann Warren, Tim Curry, like, all of these, like, professional actors and actresses brought together into a mansion. And like, everybody brings something to the table, and they all get a chance to shine. I mean, granted, Tim Curry shines the brightest because
Oh,
he's
he's
got the most
amazing.
work to do. But, like, the chops on everybody, I mean, they play this, they try. It's a movie where, it's a comedy, but it's not like pushing really hard with the comedy.
No, it's
It's
very
a murder
witty.
mystery, but it kind of lets the kind of, like, the individual quirks of the characters kind of shine.
Yeah.
And, like, like, Christopher Lloyd is I love the man, so nothing disparaging here, but he's kind of perfect as that kind of low-key pervert, who would
Yeah.
kind of like have who would have dalliances with his patients. Eileen Brennan is the perfect like neurotic congressman's wife, and like just everybody brings something to the table in a way I have not seen in any other ensemble film, in my mind.
Yeah, honestly, even looking at, you mentioned Mad World, which is one I've never seen, but I know is super popular. But even the remake Rat Race is like stuff like that. It just
Yeah.
doesn't compare.
Yeah.
And like it always blows me away that Christopher Lloyd is even in this movie. Like he has some of my favorite moments. Like one thing that totally passed me by probably like the first 3 or 4 times I saw this movie, that then became one of my favorite moments, is after he picks up Miss Scarlet and they're driving up to the mansion and they stop and she's like, "Why is the car stopped?" He's just like, "It's frightened." Like he had some of my favorite, and the way when she talks about like, "Oh, I run a house of ill repute," he's like, "Oh, really? What's the name?" And he like pulls out a notebook and, like he's so good.
And it's like no one's like going out of their way to be funny, they're just like, it's one of these movies where like, you could, you can write all this stuff out, but it's like, I can't imagine this film without Madeline Kahn. I can't picture anybody other than Martin Mull as Colonel Mustard. I mean, like I don't know what sort of black magic that let me go back here. Who's the director? Jonathan Lynn. Like, I don't know what black magic he did to get these people together in one space, but they make this movie absolute magic. Like, it does not work with like, there's a lot of people like to say, oh, in the remake, who would you cast? There is nobody.
No.
I can't think of anybody alive or dead who can replace this cast and it have the same punch.
And like even on the comment of a remake, which they've been talking about for a while, and Ryan Reynolds is the only name that I think has been thrown out there. Although I did read Jason Bateman was also maybe attached, which is hey, 2 good names to start with. But first of all, you can't do this Clue again.
No,
it would never work.
No.
You would have to try to make it your own, and I honestly just don't know how you do it. I'd be happy to see someone try, but I just really don't think you could ever top this attempt.
Yeah. And like I cringe to think what a modern, like, I thought that Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle was going to be a terrible reboot, but it worked because they found like a good direction for it. Like the video game stuff, it was less of a video game movie that I was expecting it to be.
Yeah.
But
I still haven't seen any of those new Jumanji movies.
They're surprisingly good.
That's what
surprisingly good. But with Clue, like, how do you, I can't imagine how you would make this movie today and not be a total cringe fest.
Yeah.
I can't fathom anybody who would be remotely good to fit these roles, because you can't. This is one of those weird things where like it'd be recasting Luke Skywalker, it'd be recasting Harrison Ford or Han Solo. And as much as I've turned around on Solo, you can't replace Harrison Ford. You can't replace Mark Hamill. Just as like Tim Curry is Wadsworth. Nobody else. Nobody else could ever like have the same like level of intensity he brings, the same sense of humor he brings. You can't replace any of these people. And it's weird because a lot of times you can, but I think with this one, it would be so cringy. It would be terribly acted. Like, I don't think you could ever get a cast that has the same chemistry as this one.
No, and I feel like they would try to maybe push the limit with like an R-rated version, which is like a lot of swearing and like which can be funny, I'm not above that stuff. But like some of the best humor from this movie. Like for example, I think this is maybe my first Tim Curry movie as a kid. So like you told how you stumbled across this movie. My cousin showed me this movie when I was younger, and like
Mhm.
my cousin is like significantly older than me, and she's also like a huge movie buff. So like whenever we had like family gatherings and stuff, it'd usually just be me and her hanging out, just talking about movies and stuff. Or
Nice.
we would play Scene It at family gatherings, and we were not allowed to be on the same team. And she would show me stuff. Like she showed me like I think Jaws was the first time I saw it at their house. Mallrats the first time over there. And then yeah, like Clue, she just like, oh, did you know they made a movie about Clue? And I was like, no. And so I was pretty young, and I think this was my first Tim Curry movie, but like
Mhm.
just like another moment that just kind of like is totally passable, but to me is hilarious, is like when Tim Curry's kind of laying everything out at the end, and they're like,
Yeah.
how do you know that? And he's like, can you keep a secret? And they're like, yeah, so can I.
So can
Like,
I.
he just doesn't tell him, and it's just so
Yeah.
funny to me. And like, are you familiar with the show Letterkenny? Like, have you ever watched it?
Not yet. I know of it.
Okay, first of all, go out of your way to watch. It's incredible, but honestly, they're kind of the only people I could see handling something like this in a good way. It's in terms of writing it, because a lot of the humor on that show is just about language and
Right.
the way we talk to each
Yes.
other.
Yeah. And that is one of the reasons why this cast is so great, because like it's what they're saying is so natural. Like they
Yeah.
have a natural rapport with each other.
Oh, the
Like
chemistry is off the charts for everybody as well.
and the writing, again, it pains me to see the score so low, because some of the jokes in here are just, some of them are blink and miss it, but like if you catch them, like one of my favorite, like my favorite top 5 moments is they're all sitting at the dinner table, just kind of, you know, talking amongst themselves and kind of slowly introducing themselves, and Professor Plum says that
Oh
he
yeah, yeah.
works, it's the he works for
World
the
Health
United World
Organization.
Health Organization. He works for a branch of, you know, the World Health Organization, and if you take those abbreviations, it's you know who.
Yeah. Which
Like it's just,
totally
it's,
missed it like the first like 10 times I
yeah,
saw this movie.
yeah, and like there's a lot of that here, and like with this script, it's like, take out the fact that they're using clue weapons, take out the fact that they're named after the characters of the board game, and
Which
this
they
movie
come up
still,
with like a totally good reason for
yes,
that. Like
yes, yeah, they do, they do.
so there are only 2 movies based on board games, this and Battleship, and I
That's
don't know if
right.
you've seen Battleship, but
No.
I do not hate that movie. It's big and it's dumb, but both of these movies do something very well, and that's incorporating the video or the board game elements in a way
Yes.
that makes sense and is not
Yes.
silly.
Yeah.
Because Battleship does that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just feel that you could take those elements and this movie still totally works. Like what it is. I mean, you know, it just, I figure this is a murder mystery comedy that also happens to be based on Clue.
Yeah.
I think it totally works. It was still totally funny. And just everything comes together perfectly, regardless if they were, you know, if Michael McKean was Mr. Green and Leslie Ann Warren was Miss Scarlet, who I love Leslie Ann Warren in this movie so much.
Oh, she's great. And like her and Mr. Green and Michael McKean, they're kind of the more straight ones of the movie.
Mhm,
No pun intended.
right.
And like
Hey,
they
he's a
still,
plant.
yeah. But like they still oh, which actually brings me up to another moment I will quote often, usually at work with like my coworkers. Is like, you know, we work a lot of late hours that sometimes
Sure.
we leave and it's like, all right, I'm gonna go home and sleep with my wife. just crack up some of my, because like a few of my coworkers know the movie.
Oh, I
But
love
just to like, just because like that's my humor, is just like out of nowhere
Sure.
outrageous shit.
Sure.
But yeah, like they're like Michael McKean is kind of my favorite person in the movie, of the way he's just trying to keep his cool the entire time. And just the constant, I didn't do it.
I didn't do it. Well, I had to stop her from screaming.
Which Tim Curry gives the best line reading of
Yes,
later.
he does.
Like he almost sounds exactly like him.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, like man, this
It's a movie that you can't, it's hard to pigeonhole it in one genre. Like,
yeah.
oh, it's a comedy, it's a mystery. It's also got all this political like
Yeah.
thriller espionage stuff thrown in that's literally there as a joke.
Yeah, communism is a red herring. And like all set in this beautiful like this full-on mansion. I don't think it was, I don't know if it was a set or not.
Okay, so I actually have an answer to this. So
Perfect.
the main ballroom was real. That was
Okay.
a real location called Hill House, which was made for Deborah Hill.
Oh, okay.
And then all of the other rooms are sets.
Wow.
But the rooms and the way they're laid out in the mansion is identical to the board game. So there's like a lot in the secret passages lead from the same locations as the board game. So there's a lot of attention to detail, which is interesting because like they're sets, they're not even in the same location, but you get a sense of the lay of the land of this house.
Absolutely. And you know they
where
do,
every room is.
Yeah, and they do such a good job with that by the movie begins with, oh, he goes to the kitchen, and then Colonel Mustard is the first one to show up, and he takes him to the study, and then when they all meet, they go into the dining. So yeah, it does a really good natural job of showing you, okay, here are all the rooms, here are their locations, and all of that of course is reinforced in the middle act when they're all searching the mansion from top to bottom. But
which even that the pairing off of groups is also like a joke.
Yeah,
like it's Miss Scarlet and Colonel Mustard, which he was one of her clients, and what's her name, Mrs. Peacock and Professor Plum, which she's like this uptight conservative and he's like a womanizer, like, yeah. And then Yvette and Mr. Green, which also one of my favorite moments is, oh, but I'm scared of the dark, who will go with me? And he's just like, no, thank you.
No, thank you.
Yeah. Like seriously, that is one of the biggest laughs of the movie, and it's just dialogue, and it's not even like there's no overt jokes in the movie, but it's one of the funniest comedies I've ever seen.
Yeah, and everybody's so good at taking it seriously. They're just the delivery, their delivery of like just the one of the multiple endings where it's they're trying to count the number of shots fired from the revolver.
Oh god, yeah.
Like it's a ridiculous scene, but it's delivered so well because it's just everybody's buying into it. Like everybody's absolutely buying into it, and they have this just brilliance with taking this ridiculous dialogue, well, not ridiculous, but just kind of like people probably wouldn't talk this way, but in a way that's just hilarious. But like, they're okay. Wadsworth has a gun to his face, and they're doing math.
1 + 2 + 2 + 1.
1 + 2 + 2 + 1. And it was one shot for and there's a great payoff for that because he fires the gun and it goes off, and and it's just everything about this is just so smart. Smartly written and smartly performed.
Yeah. And so do you, like me, count the shots every time you watch the movie?
Oh, of course. Of course.
Oh man, like it's that kind of stuff. Like you telling me that they do screenings of this like Rocky Horror, like that is my goal now, is to seek one out. I
definitely want to do that because this movie is one of those enjoyed with a group, because like I'm usually just watching this by myself. But I would love to see like a full, just being in a theater with people watching this. And especially since you would get all three endings, because that was the big peculiar thing about this movie. Probably one of a couple reasons why it didn't perform as well.
That is listed as one of the reasons it backfired. Is like, oh, people didn't want to go see the same movie. But I do feel like that's something people would try nowadays, like the way, theaters are kind of fledging, even before COVID. But the way we try gimmicks like 3D and stuff.
Look at what Avengers did, or Marvel did. They re-released Endgame with like footage
Like
from
just
the next
deleted
Spider-Man
scenes or
movie,
something.
deleted scenes, all because they wanted to beat Avatar. Like, how
Yeah.
stupid is that? But it made money. So I think I think today, like if you were to say, okay, check your listings and find out, which version of Clue A, B, or C is playing, so you can get, that ending. I think it would totally work.
Yeah, it's weird to look at some like, oh, it didn't work in 85 but could work in
Mm-hmm.
2021.
Mm-hmm.
Just because like we are a more film savvy audience now, like the industry has changed very much since then.
And I think people are open to gimmicks.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh yeah, for sure.
what is your favorite ending?
I do like the one with I like the true ending just because like
Mm-hmm.
I think it is the one that's most fun. But I
Yeah.
always loved the Miss Scarlet ending.
Yeah. Yep.
Just because, like, again, the whole math thing with the gun, and like, I love her line of like 1 + 2, but shut up, just like yells at him. Like, I really love that ending.
um that's a great ending. I almost have to, the Peacock ending and ends up being for me, if just only because the cops come, they take her away, and Wadsworth is like, it's like the Mounties, we always get our man, and
Oh
Mr. Green's
yeah,
like, Mrs. Peacock was a man, and gets slapped by
like 3 different
like
people.
a last little bit of slapstick, but it
Yeah,
just comes out of nowhere. And no, I just think, because Eileen Brennan, it's funny because she was Nurse Ratchet in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, right?
I'm not sure. Like, I'm not super familiar with her.
Let
Like,
me
out of the
check.
rest of everybody in the cast,
I have it right. I have it
who's in
right
Jeepers
here.
Creepers.
Oh, she was in Murder by Death. Um, but let's
Like,
see.
and when I first saw the movie, she was like one of my least favorites. But every time I watch it, I love her more and more.
I
Like,
guess not. Maybe she wasn't. Okay,
oh
I'm
yeah,
probably thinking of
I'm
something
not
else.
seeing it on here.
But I mean, she seems but like, again, she's just so wonderfully neurotic and eccentric, and she does get a nice little moment where, like, it makes you think that that hole was a facade, because the way she slips into this sort of cunning, conniving mode when Wadwith exposes her. Please, there are ladies present. But it's such a great turn for the character, and like, she just puts in an incredible
Yeah,
she just puts in an incredible
the
performance.
performance is great. Yeah, like once she knows that she's found out, she's kind of like, "Oh, really?" Like she's
Yeah.
just becomes a little conniving. I do
Yeah,
also
it's
love in the last ending when Wadsworth is reveled to be Mr. Body, and Professor Ball's like, "Well, who did I kill?" It's like my butler. He's like, "Oh, shucks!" Like, oh man, I shot the wrong guy.
Oh man, yeah, and of course, special shout out to the singing Telegram girl,
Oh yeah,
um who I used to work with someone, and it always made me really happy because she was familiar with the movie, and she always said that that was always her favorite part, and she would sing that little song, and it just made me happy.
that was something my brother and my cousin and I used to do all the time when we see each other. We just do the "I am the singing telegram" like whenever we'd walk into a room or something. Yeah, like I said, every part of this movie is just so quotable.
Yeah,
Um,
insanely quotable.
one of my favorite lines is he threatened to kill me in public. Is like, why
Yeah.
would he want to kill you in public?
He
I think he
threatened in
meant,
public to kill her.
yeah, like it's that kind of stuff. And that was actually the part when I was watching it this time, I was like, oh, like Letterkenny, because that is what that show does like super well. Is
Mm-hmm.
like the humor comes from the way the characters talk and what they're saying, and
Yeah.
they just go on rants where they say stuff like that over and over again, like back and forth to each other. Like, I highly recommend that show, but
Mm-hmm.
I have converted most of my coworkers at this point. But yeah, like that stuff really gets, because it's smart, it's witty, and like
Mm-hmm.
they're not saying outlandish things to get a laugh. They're just talking, but
Yeah.
everything they're saying is hilarious.
And like, I've seen quite a few Madeline Kahn films, and I love her so much. It broke my heart when she
Yeah.
passed. Um, but like, this is just like peak Madeline Kahn for me. Um, because she, as like Mrs. White, the sort of disaffected wife, um, married to an illusionist who never reappeared because he wasn't a very good illusionist.
Yeah.
Um, just like, uh, it's her performance. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. She's hysterical in her own Madeline Kahn way. Again, like you can't remake this movie without her.
No, like she was always I mean, I haven't seen many things outside of all her Mel Brooks movies.
Mhm.
But like she's fantastic. And
Yeah.
like even her, it's like, how many husbands have you had? Mine or other women's? Like there's just so many little lines thrown in there. Like she's great.
Flies are where men are most vulnerable.
Yeah, which that one like took me a second. I was like, wait, what? Oh yeah. And also the little moment, which was another joke, was when they all split up, is like when Wadsworth won't let her leave, and she's like, oh, I'm gonna get you one day when we're
Right.
alone.
Yep.
And then they're the ones who end up split up together.
I wonder. Well, I mean, that had to have been deliberate. Like,
Oh yeah, for sure.
I always see stuff like that. It's like, okay, we're just going to do this random thing, and then so yeah, I would. But yeah, it's perfect because they end up just being foils for each other.
Yeah.
And you throw that into a mix where they're investigating the spooky house where the murder could be, and where the other half of the pair would be dead.
Yeah.
And it's war, Peacock.
Colonel Mustard is just the best idiot in this movie.
Yeah, that's the best way to describe his character, because it's so funny too, because he comes off as a like pretty straight-laced kind of guy, but the more you get to know about him, like he just kind of falls apart, to where he's just a clown. Like he's
Yeah.
But again, like not in any sort of like obtuse or cartoony way. It's through the little things, when he came into money after the war, when he lost his mommy and daddy.
Yeah.
And
again, with like language as a joke, there's the whole bit with him and Wadsworth, which is something that infuriates me, is like when they're like, hey, is there anybody else in this house? No, there is somebody else in this house. And like, it's when you ask someone, like you shoot someone a text that has 2 questions in it and they just say yes, it's like, oh my God, please just pay attention and answer what I'm trying to say here.
I just need a clear answer. Certainly.
What was the question?
I feel like I got to be careful because we might just end up quoting the entire movie for this thing. I feel like we've hit on a third of it already, but no, I mean, again, it just goes to show like the staying power of this movie. Like it's insanely rewatchable. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard. It's always hard when you're watching, something that kind of hinges on, it's a mystery, and once the mystery is solved, what's the point in going back? What's the point in rewatching Clue as much as we have? But it's in the performance, it's in the show. It's
still
the character
funny
behavior
to this day, no matter how many times I've seen it, because and they say comedy ages the worst, and it's usually because it's referencing like pop culture or stuff like that,
right?
But this will stand the test of time forever, because
Absolutely.
there's nothing in this movie that feels dated in terms of like jokes.
I mean, to begin with, it's a period piece, and it's set in a specific period of time where you could have these characters kind of going off about like spying and espionage and all that stuff, but it still works. Like, it works as well as it did in 1985 as it does in 2021. It's brilliant. It is what it is. And Metacritic ratings be damned, Rotten Tomatoes be damned. This is a brilliant movie.
Yeah, like it's one I'm always trying to get people to watch, and people are just like, what? They made a movie about Clue? Like, no way.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I work at a library, and every once in a while we would get people. It's like, I'm just looking for like a funny movie to watch, and I'm like, all right, I got the one here. And what had happened was I got so tired of like going over to the shelf and seeing it checked out that I went ahead and ordered like multiple copies of it so we could have it on the shelf. And usually everybody who gets back to me says that they really enjoy it.
Yeah, like as a specific friend of mine, I'm like, just watch the movie, trust me. I know it sounds weird, and like one day I'm just going to convince him to do it, and I can't wait to hear his reaction. Because yeah, like it's just so timeless. And
Mhm.
I actually pulled up this BuzzFeed article. Actually, I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah,
But
it's a great read. It's a great read.
yeah, and it's actually, and there was one thing on the Wikipedia, they do actually figure out around the time of when this would have took place, and it's
Mm-hmm.
because you hear something on the TV with the cook of
Sure.
some
Yeah.
congressional thing, so it would have taken place somewhere, I think, in like June of 1955 or
Oh,
54 or
okay.
something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's like in the 50s.
Yeah.
But I think a great idea they have is introducing these other characters that are there just
Mm-hmm.
to be killed,
Mm-hmm.
because the whole point of the board game is it's just the characters. And
Yeah.
I was actually reading in the board game, Mrs. White is actually portrayed as the maid, so
Mm-hmm.
they actually just made the maid a separate character.
Yeah.
And it's impressive to me that they actually wrote a story that is as interesting as it is with
Mm-hmm.
as little information as they have from the board
Right.
game.
Yeah, and it's like, what do you need for a Clue movie? You need a mansion and you need the weapons.
Yeah.
And I like the reveal of the weapons is done so fantastically, because it's not one of the, and this is something I could see like the remake doing, where it'd be like Mr. Green, who's played by Ryan Reynolds, kind of saunters into a room, and it's like, oh no, it's, or like he's in the basement, and it's like, oh no, it's dark and scary here, I should grab something to defend myself, and reaches over for a lead pipe.
Yeah.
Wink.
Yeah.
Whereas here, Mr. Body comes in, who is kind of depicted as being this person who is, the reason all of these characters are together is because they're all being blackmailed by him for various government secrets or personal secrets. And so it's like, okay, so you can turn me into the police, but I'm going to expose you, or we can kill the butler and get out of here, and no one will be the wiser. And he gifts everybody a murder weapon, like just seemingly random. Again, if this weren't a Clue movie, this could just be seemingly random implements of murder: lead pipe,
Yeah, it
the
wouldn't
monkey
stand out
wrench,
to me
and
as being weird in any way.
yeah. And all kind of like, and just that's, turn the lights off, and then like whoever kill, it's great. Like it's such a fantastic introduction to iconic game pieces.
Yeah. And they all get used in one way, shape, or
Mm-hmm.
form. And
Mm-hmm.
it's also one of my reasons why I love the true ending or whatever, is because every murder weapon does get used to kill someone.
Yeah, the candlestick twice.
Yeah. And the scene where they have the candlestick above the bathroom,
Yep.
and it falls on his head.
I'm not shouting. Yeah, so I mean, as far as yeah, I mean, it's such a brilliant way to introduce something that by its very nature is very silly, but something that works in universe. Like,
Yeah.
absolutely works in universe.
Yeah. And like, I think another favorite element of the movie to me is just the way everybody just kind of gets accustomed to the murder, to the point where,
Mhm.
like, when the first ones happen, everybody's freaking out, and then then what is it, the cop is the next one, or the motorist is the next one?
Yeah.
And then everybody's like, oh my god, what's going on? But then like 3 murders happen at once, and they just saunder from room to room, just like,
just checking everything. Okay, yep, 2 corpses, everything's fine.
yeah, like, just the way by the end of it, there's like, there's just so many dead people, like, what do we even do at this point? And like, they're carrying the cook from the room, they just drop her. like there's so
Look, the body's
much
gone. Boom.
Yeah.
Just the Foley work of the body hitting the floor cracks me up every time. No, there's nobody. There's no body.
Yeah, no body.
Like just the
Mr. Body's body, it's gone.
The play on words, the puns, just like, again, yeah. The writing and the delivery, man, is
so
perfect.
Smart.
Yeah,
like it's I could easily see, like, oh, it's just like a stupid comedy. It's like, is it? Like, maybe pay attention.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
it's so clever in its execution on
Mhm.
almost every level. Like, I can totally get some people being like, oh, the part where they search the house is boring, but
Sure.
I don't think it is. Like, I love
I
moments
don't either.
even where like Mr. Green and Yvette are going up the stairs and she's like, well, why don't you go? And he's like, okay. And it's just a shot of him just standing there to
Yeah.
the point where they cut away. Like, there's still good stuff there. And then when
Yeah.
Wadsworth is like trying to find his way through the dark and steps into the shower and turns it
Mhm.
on, and then he's just like
Mhm.
squishing as he's running down the stairs after that. Like I personally think every minute of this movie is like perfect.
Yeah,
It
this movie drips gold from the screen at every point.
Yeah, and I throw it on a lot. Like, I have a
Mhm.
letterboxd account, and I, log every movie I watch, and it adds up when you rewatch movies and stuff. And I think this was my 5th time logging this movie, and I've only been using letterboxd for like 2 years.
Yeah, boy, this is something I would love to see get like some sort of bit, Dune is getting a big like 4K Ultra HD release, gift box, gift set thing, and like this is one movie that I really wish would get that royal treatment
Yeah, it
because
has a big cult following. Like, you definitely
yeah,
think it would be in their interest to do it.
absolutely.
Because yeah, I think any like release of this, the version I have is a digital copy, so I don't know if there
Hmm.
are any extras on my version. But I think
Hmm.
it's one of those
Oh,
movies where on the Blu-ray the extras are just like a trailer or something.
well, and that's the funny thing because on the DVD, the special features are animated menus and multiple endings.
Oh Jesus! Which the multiple endings are just in the movie.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I love when animated menus was a menu feature
Yep.
or a back of the box feature.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
like, so I think it was on one of Kevin Smith's podcasts. He had a friend that was like a huge fan of this movie, and he
Hmm.
actually tracked down the director and they did a commentary track on the podcast.
Oh wow.
Unfortunately, I think that podcast is behind a paywall now,
Oh.
because he started putting like, it's one of those podcasts now where it's like, oh, like the last like 5 episodes are all free, everything else is behind a
Oh,
paywall.
sure. Yeah.
So I'm not even sure what episode it was, but I listened to it and it was pretty, I don't remember a lot from it, but it was pretty interesting. And him
Hmm.
just talking about like kind of just like superfluous about some of the stuff that we hold so like in
Hmm.
high regard. Just like, yeah, we weren't sure if it was going to work, but people
Yeah.
seem to like it. And
Yeah.
all talked a lot about the like the political aspects of the movie and the way it was all kind of in there just to literally as a red herring, which they call out multiple times.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, no, definitely excuse me, definitely get a chance to read through that article because they do speak with a bunch of the actors who were like, it makes like paraphrasing, but it's just like all of them pretty much agree that it's really fun when people come up and say that we loved you in Clue, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
um
Which
but
Tim Curry has said this is his favorite movie
mhm,
of his,
yeah. um
which I think I would agree.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, this and Muppet Treasure Island, of course.
Oh, I actually just watched that for
But
the first time like this year. It was actually when I had COVID and I was sitting at home and
oh
I was like,
hey,
well, I'm gonna watch
there
the
you go.
Muppet movies.
But yeah, my secret wish is that for Knives Out 2, Ryan
Oh,
Johnson would get as many surviving members of Clue to be in it.
that would be
um
great.
and it just gives me the warm fuzzies just thinking about that.
Yeah, and Knives Out is kind of the only movie you could compare to this,
Yeah, yes, very much,
which
very
is
much.
great. And man, somebody gave an idea for Knives Out 2 that I'm just so sad will never happen, which
Hmm.
was Daniel Craig and Taika Waititi as like dueling detectives on like
Oh
the same case.
man, why
And I
did
was
you
like,
tell me
man, why?
that?
I know. Why did somebody have to tweet that?
God. Oh man. But yeah, this is just a fantastic. I would just end up repeating myself, but everything about this movie is just pure gold from start to finish.
Yeah.
The set design, the costume design, the cast, um like sitting through, like, on paper, Tim Curry, like, running at double speed, summarizing the entire movie sounds silly. But when you
And it
see him
is.
and it is, yeah, but you see it in action, and it's probably one of the greatest comedy bits, like, in film.
Oh, absolutely. Like, this is my favorite comedy of all time. Like, I used to say it was a different movie, and like, honestly, like, this has always been up there for me. But like, this most recent watch is definitely, and honestly, like, I watched this yesterday, but I had actually just watched this like a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that was why it was so fresh in my head, that when I was starting to put together this podcast, I'm like, oh, I gotta talk about Clue. Because like, I had literally just watched it.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I could throw it on at any time, and like,
Yeah.
no, I'll watch the whole thing. Like, I don't, and it's not a very long movie.
Mm-hmm.
um which actually, one thing I saw in the trivia is they actually did have more endings that did get
Mm.
cut out, because they literally had an ending for every character
Oh
as
wow.
the killer.
Oh
Which, I
man.
mean, if you're gonna, I don't know if they've shot them all.
Right.
The IMDb trivia was worded as if they did, because they said they
Mm-hmm.
cut it out for runtime, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe they
Mm-hmm.
didn't. If they ever did like a bigger release, that's what I want to see. Like, show me the ending where like Mr. Green is the killer,
Mm-hmm.
or Professor Plum. Like, I love the idea of any one of them being
Yeah.
like the one that kills everybody.
And then just like the last one, it's where they all did it, you know.
Yeah. Which is great. Like, I think that's like a good way to do it. Like, and that's again why I love that ending so much.
Yeah. And then, you can also make the joke, that the butler did it,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's
And
it's
that's
just so good. And like, it's I did not watch to prepare for this, but as soon as we're done here, I'm totally watching this.
and that's the thing. I probably didn't have to. Like, I've
No,
seen
yeah,
it
yeah.
so many times.
I can't visualize things in my head like most people can, but like, this is the one thing where like I can close my eyes and I can see Tim Curry bringing in Mrs. White and pulling the coat, that beautiful, like,
Yeah.
white, black and white, evening, coat, um and then she starts smelling the dog poop.
Yeah, which
But
is
like,
another great running joke at the beginning, is everyone sniffing when he walks by. Yeah, like, I mean, to put it in perspective, the only new thing I got out of this watch was the Letterkenny
oh right.
correlation of like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, like those guys, like the way they write comedy, it would actually be a good group of guys to give it to. And like, other than that, everything else is just like the thoughts I've had on this movie a million times. Like, I didn't need to watch it,
Mm-hmm.
but I will, because it's incredible.
So this is interesting. I was just browsing the trivia here. There was actually a fourth ending scripted and shot, in which Wadsworth committed all the murders out of a twisted
Oh
need
yeah,
for
I did read
perfection in
this.
his life. Um, he reveals that he poisoned everyone with a slow-acting toxin in their drinks, and in typical Clue fashion, it ended with Wadsworth being killed by the dogs.
Yeah, it's like, he, instead of running them around the house before the cops get there, it's
Mm-hmm.
like the cops get there and then he runs around to show them how he did it, and then he
Right.
ends up locking them in the house and getting out. But as he's driving away, the dogs are in the back seat, and they're like, "Yeah, that's too dark. We can't do that."
Yeah.
But like, yeah, if they
uh,
shot that, put that on a special edition Blu-ray or 4K.
there's yeah, and just going through all this, where they kind of point out that in the ending Wadsworth has different characters. I love, where the cops there, and he gets them to, it's like, why is J. Edgar Hoover on your phone? It's like, why, he's on everybody else's, why shouldn't he be on
Yeah,
mine?
that's a great line. Some interesting casting options is Jennifer Jason Leigh, Demi Moore, and Madonna were all considered for Yvette.
I see that John Cleese was originally considered for Wadsworth.
Yeah, Carrie Fisher was originally Miss Scarlet, but ended up in rehab.
Mm-hmm. I could see her doing well with that part.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would actually like to see a version of this with her in it, like
Mhm.
her and Madeline Kahn in the same movie. That would be fascinating.
Oh man, yeah, what a classic film.
Yeah, it really, to me, it is a classic, and it always will be.
And like again, like you say, I can understand people, feeling the second part chugs, but honestly, I think this is a perfect movie.
Yeah,
Like I'm
absolutely.
no longer going to dance around it anymore. This movie is perfect.
Yeah, like I get why people were put off by that part, but they're wrong.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah, it's okay to be wrong. It's
yeah,
totally okay.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
like, back in 85, multiple endings, it didn't work for those
Yeah,
people. I think that gimmick would honestly work better now.
I really think it would. Yeah.
Like, I'd honestly want to like poll people like that I know and be like, hey, if they did this, would you be
Mhm.
into this? Oh, one thing I did see, I totally forgot about this, is that at one point Anthony Perkins was writing a screenplay, who, Norman Bates from
Right.
Psycho,
Yeah.
which
Wow.
is very interesting. But
Yeah.
apparently he was just one of the people to kind of be brought in, and then
Mm-hmm.
they rewrote what he did. So
Interesting. Huh. Yeah. I love this movie. Like
yeah,
you can, yeah. As far as like again, it's hard to defend a perfect movie because there's nothing to defend. Um, but just it's one of those rare films that's just insanely watchable.
yeah. Were you like a fan of the board game? Like, have you played the board
Oh
game? Because
yeah.
I know a
Yeah.
lot of people who have, like, for one, it's my favorite board game. No one will play it with me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I have a brand new, never used edition of Clue here because nobody ever wants to play Clue.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I've only played it like once or twice in my real life.
Yeah. No, I played it a bunch when I was a kid, and then did like I had like like they made like we had like a deluxe version of Clue where it's like the house was bigger and there were more murder weapons and stuff. But
Yeah.
and then enough time passed to where I got to I was for a library program thinking of doing a life-size Clue.
Oh man,
Um
that'd be cool.
and reading the directions, I'm like, how the hell are you supposed to play this game? Like for some reason I just could not wrap my head around like the flow of the gameplay. And it wasn't until actually sitting down to play Harry Potter Clue that it's like, oh right, like this all like makes sense now. But just
Yeah.
having that weird moment, it's like, how the hell are you supposed to play this game?
Yeah, like I haven't played it since I was maybe like 10 to 12, somewhere in that range.
Mm-hmm.
And I could not tell you what the rules of the board game are today.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
I know it's like, oh, after so much stuff, you get a chance to guess at like what's in what the cards are in the package or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I always want to check out. They have like a video game version on the Switch that I want to know about, like if that's any
Mm-hmm.
good. But
Mm-hmm.
it's always like $30, and I'm like,
Right.
well, not for that price.
Yeah. Right.
Like, I don't even know if I can play this by myself. Is this online only? I want to
Mm-hmm.
look into that just because like I would love a way to experience Clue.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny how like every license like has a Clue game.
Yeah.
Harry Potter Clue. There's a Scooby-Doo Clue, which is just absolutely perfect.
Oh, that's amazing. Get us
But
Knives Out Clue.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And man, that would be such a great double feature. Clue
Oh,
and
it
Knives
would.
Out. Yeah.
Absolutely. Fuck, man. I
I'm
might
gonna
watch
give
Knives
myself a
Out.
double feature tonight.
Yeah, I might actually watch Knives Out after this.
Yeah.
I have only seen that twice now, so I need to catch up.
Yeah, you do.
But yeah, man, it, like you said, it's a perfect movie.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like for us, it's weird to say that like, oh, we're defending this movie, but like, hey, defend is up for interpretation with this show
for sure.
But it's a movie I cannot recommend enough to
Mm-hmm.
anybody
Mm-hmm.
if you haven't seen it, and if you have seen it, watch it again.
Yep.
Yeah, man. And is there anything left to say? Any more favorite lines we didn't quote yet?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think if there's any ones that I really really like. Again, I think as far as just banter back and forth, the where they're all having dinner is great, and you get like all these callbacks, so just like the chilled monkey brains, not
Nothing is
served in Washington
wasted in
D.C.
this movie. Like no
And then
line of dialogue is wasted.
yeah, and then you get that extra bit of where you get to see Michael McKean throw up.
Is that what we had?
That's another line I will say quite often in my everyday life. But
he has a lot of good just moments in the background like that.
He does.
When they push him into the toilet and then he comes out like a second later, just like washing his hands. Like
the scene where they're all talking to the police officer. No, I'm sorry. It's the
motorist
where they have staged the dead bodies to be like, partying. And Wadsworth is confronted by the police officer. And just this is a free country.
I didn't know it was that free.
And just watch Michael McKean's face during that scene, because he's just got this wide idiot smile, hey, we pulled this off, but like we're still totally gonna get in trouble.
Yeah.
Just watch it again. Like the look on his face is just amazing.
Yeah, it's so good. I feel like I'm missing out on a Colonel Mustard moment, but
oh gosh, I mean, there's my brother and I laugh every time when it's like, does anybody else want a whiskey? And he's just like,
and he just like pours it on the table,
pours against like the 3 glasses, and just that is there anybody in the house? Like that's such a like Abbott and Costello like level kind of gag. And if you're trying to make me look stupid, and are you trying to make me look stupid in front of everybody? It's like, you don't need any help from me, sir. That's right.
Yeah, like he's just such an idiot. But like as good as this movie is as a comedy, like the mystery elements are kind of fun too. Like when they're at the dinner scene and you're slowly learning that they all work in Washington, it's all really, really good.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, like you said, you could strip the license out of this movie and it still works on every level.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah. But before we quote the entire movie, we should probably wrap it up. Did you want to promote anything before we get out of here?
There's this really great movie you should watch. It's called Clue. It's about a board game. No, I have nothing to promote except this movie.
Are you still over at Dark Station, or?
No, I am. Okay. I am done with Dark Station. I have a YouTube channel that like I occasionally will post some stuff, but it's kind of on the publishing schedule of whenever I'm not lazy and feel like it. So
yeah.
I'm just I'm trouncing around on Twitter. You can usually find me there.
Yeah, posting pictures of your new little kitten.
Exactly. Yeah, using Twitter for how it was meant to be used.
Yeah, which adorable little kitten, by the
way. Thank you.
We actually took in a third recently.
Oh,
now we got 3 cats. They don't get along with the other 2, but
yeah, but the moment you hope for is when they tolerate each other's existence.
Yeah, they'll at least be able to sit in the same room now, but usually one of them is like huddled down.
Perfect.
Yeah. So I love seeing that little cat.
Yeah.
But all right, man. Thank you very much for
Thank you for letting me have a chance to talk about this wonderful movie of mine. And really, if you haven't seen it, people, take the time. It's like 90 or so minutes. It's you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, under 2 hours for sure.
Yeah,
it's fantastic. It's hilarious. I'm literally probably gonna watch it again this weekend.
Yep. So. Oh yeah, yep. I'm already making plans.
Yeah, and like you said, a good double bill with Knives Out. Like if you're a Knives Out fan, which most people are, watch Clue.
Yeah. Yes.
But,
yes.
All right. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And thank everybody for listening. Be sure to hit up the social medias at Defending Movie on Twitter and Instagram. And we'll see you all next time.
Bye.